Hi everyone, I'm Zui. We are Group 7 and welcome to our presentation on Chapter 8 of our course, Ethical, Social and Political Issues in E-Commerce. In today's digital age, e-commerce not only revolutionizes how we shop, but also brings forth a range of critical challenges. We'll explore the ethical, social and political implications, including privacy and information rights, intellectual property rights, governance and public safety and welfare. Let's dive into how these issues shape and impact the world of online businesses. Let's get started.
Hi everyone, my name is Manam, and in the first part of this video, I will help you to understand some ethical, social, and political issues in e-commerce. First, I will display a model for organizing the issue. And now, please pay attention to the figure 8.1. We can see the major ethical, social, and political issues that have developed around e-commerce. They can be loosely categorized into four moral dimensions: information rights, property rights, governance, and public safety and welfare. Next, I will show you some basic ethical concepts. But to understand them, first we have to know what ethics is. Ethics is the study of principles that individuals and organizations can use to determine right and wrong courses of action. And in the Western culture, there are four basic principles that all ethical schools of thought share. And they are responsibility, accountability, liability, and due process. In the next part, we will find ways to analyze ethical dilemmas. A dilemma is a situation in which there are at least two diametrically opposed actions, each of which support a desirable outcome. And when you confront with a situation that seems to present an ethical dilemma, you can analyze and reason about the situation by using the 5-step process. You can see it in the slide. And in the following part, I will show you some ethical principles that are helpful for analyzing and solving cases in an ethical way. So we have the golden rules, universalism, collective utilitarian principle, risk aversion, slippery slope, the no free lunch, the New York Times test, and we can know as the perfect information rule, and the social contract rule. However, some of these rules is an absolute guide, and there are exceptions and logical difficulty with all of them. That is also the final content of my part.
Thank you, Wanda, for such a thoughtful presentation. So hello everyone, my name is Nhật Anh, and I will present to you privacy and information rights. So first, what is information privacy? It comes down to four central premises, including rights to control the use of information collected, rights to personal information to process, rights to know when information is being collected about us, and rights to have personal information stored in a secure manner. However, the concept of public sector and private sector in information privacy is really different. In the public sector, it has a long history of legal foundation for privacy rights. Was protected by the U.S. Constitution. We can see that the First Amendment is about freedom of speech, religion, and association. The Fourth Amendment is about protection against unreasonable searches and seizures by the government. The 14th Amendment is about right to privacy in certain aspects of life, including liberty and property. And the next one is Privacy Act of 1974, defines privacy rights regarding data collected by federal government agencies. However, the concept of privacy in the private sector is much newer and unsettled. Regulations are not as strong as legal rights. For example, the FTC principles are guidelines, not laws. In the US, for example, business can gather transaction information generated in marketplace, but doing so in Europe would be illegal. There are two kinds of solutions used prominently. The first one is industry self-regulation. Efforts have not been particularly effective because online privacy seals and industry association policies offer limited consumer protection. For example, the Altruistic program by the Digital Advertising Alliance. At best, self-regulation has offered consumer notice about whether a privacy about policy exists, but usually says little about the actual use of the information. And the next one is technological solution using blocking third-party cookies and IP tracking, differential privacy software, privacy-preserving machine learning, privacy default browsers with viewing VPN and encryption. However, strike a balance between security and privacy is really difficult because in the US, law enforcement agencies are allowed to monitor internet users without their knowledge. And even the FBI has been able to crack iPhone device encryption about Apple support. And even Supreme Court has ruled that the government needs a warrant to obtain cell phones and mobile location data. However, The government agencies are among the largest users of private sector commercial data brokers. So thank you everyone, that's the end of my part.
Okay, hello, my name is Hu. I'll be talking about intellectual property rights. First, let's have a look at some background information. What is intellectual property? Well, it is an idea, a design, something that somebody creates. So it's basically a product of the human mind. As a general rule, the creator of intellectual property owns that property, and the law prevents other people from copying it. For example, if you create a website, it entirely belongs to you, and you have exclusive rights to use it. Also, given how the internet has changed everything about intellectual property in terms of ease of replication, transmission, and alternation, intellectual property law now seeks to control the access, use, distribution, and copying of those works. But this is extremely challenging because the ultimate goal here is to balance the two competing interests, the public and the private. Public interest is served by the creation and distribution of inventions, works of art, and other forms of intellectual expression, while private interest is served by rewarding people for creating these works. So basically we have 4 types of intellectual property protection. The first one is copyright. Copyright law protects original forms of expression such as writings and art from being copied by others for a period of time, but it does not protect the idea itself, just their expression in a tangible medium like paper and digital storage. Because of this, one of the biggest drawbacks of this type of protection is that other people can see how the work is created and we use the technique to make a different work without violating the law. The next type of protection is patents, which grant the owner an exclusive monopoly on the idea behind their invention. And there are 4 types of inventions for which patents can be granted: machines, man-made products, compositions of matter, and processing methods. Unlike copyrights, patents protect the idea itself and not merely the expression of it. Right, let's move on to the next one, which is trademarks. A trademark is a mark used to identify and distinguish goods and indicate their source. Trademark law helps the buyers get what they pay for and protect the owner against piracy and misappropriation. Lastly, we have trade secrets, which are essentially information that is secret, that has commercial value and has been protected by its owner. So, in order for a piece of information to be considered a trade secret, it first has to be a secret, of course, and it also needs to hold some sort of commercial value to its owner, and the owner has to have taken steps to protect it. Okay, so that was some basic information about intellectual property rights and the 4 types of protection. And thank you for listening. And now we shall move on to the next section, which is going to be governance.
Okay, so now we move to the 4th part of our presentation today is the governance. So we need to understand the governance involves social control. Who will control the internet, the processes, the content, the activity of e-commerce, and what elements will be controlled, and how it will be implemented. So why do we as a society need to control e-commerce? Because controlling the e-commerce also involves regulating the internet. Okay, so now we'll move to the first part of our presentation. So initially, they believed that the internet would not be controlled because due to the complicated monitoring and controlling. However, contrary to the early views and belief, China, Austria, and Iran have some governmental regulation to block external inappropriate content by using centralized monitoring points, networking access point, key telecommunication infrastructure. In the US, they have some specific controls like shutdown for legal violation, remove or block, and in NSA and FBI, they monitor the internet traffic. However, there are some challenges due to the First Amendment is the freedom of the speech. Now we've moved to the second part is the taxation. The sales tax dynamics is in the region without income taxes. E-commerce and taxes debate on remote sales taxation. So the ITFA, also as known as Internet Tax Freedom Act, is ban taxes that discriminate against e-commerce. So regulated change and Supreme Court decision is to make tax online services regardless of the seller's physical presence, and the future tax battle based on the new taxation form such as digital advertising taxes. Now we move to the third part is net neutrality. So net neutrality is to treat all internet data equally. So pre-2015 ISP practice is to throttle or block user based on high bandwidth usage or protocol used such as BitTorrent. And ISP arguments against net neutrality is to prevent the service disruption. And in 2015, they operated with minimal regulation, and the FCC in 2015 ISP as public utility similar to telephone company ensure fair access and encourage competition. However, in 2017, there are some shifts to reverse the 2015 FCC ruling, reverting ISPs to their previous classification. And in 2019, it confirmed that the FCC could not prevent states from passing their own net neutrality law. And now we move to the fourth part is antitrust, monopoly, and market competition in the internet era. So the Alphabet, Amazon, and Meta, it dominate market, and they are criticized for restricting competition by acquiring small innovative company. So privacy and security concern is the privacy violation, inadequate security for user data, spreading misinformation, contribute negatively to the public. And we were concerned to the legislative influence, it to leverage the substantial financial resources to fend off regulation that might limit the power. And also we need to call for regulation is be either broken up or more rigorously regulated by cultural and regulatory honeymoon. Okay, so that is my presentation.
Okay, so one more issue that's also mentioned in this chapter is public safety and welfare. In the US, public safety and welfare issues with respect to the online environment include concerns about the impact of harmful content, particularly on children and teenagers, the protection of public health through restricting sales of cigarettes and drugs, and efforts to control gambling. Now let's come to the first part, which is protecting children. The two most serious problems regarding protecting children online are online pornography and the negative impact of the internet and social media on children's mental health. To address this, many legislative efforts have been made. Some notable examples include Communication Decency Act, the Children's Internet Protection Act, the Domain Names Act and Protect Act, and the last one, the Age Appropriate Design Code Act in California. Now let's move on to the next part, which is cigarettes, drugs, and gambling. Firstly, let's talk about cigarettes. Some regulatory efforts have been made to address the issue of cigarette trafficking in the US, both online and offline. These efforts include pressuring payment processors and shipping companies to cease services for online cigarette merchants. However, challenges persist, notably concerning the operation of offshore websites which accept checks and money orders as payment and utilize the postal system for deliveries. To tackle this, the Prevent All Cigarette Trafficking Act was enacted. Secondly, let's talk about drugs. Two major problems we can mention here are the proliferation of online pharmacies and the darknet. Online pharmacies present significant challenges due to the prevalence of rogue operators. These pharmacies often operate from countries with lax regulations, offering lower-priced medications that may be counterfeit or substandard. About the darknet marketplaces, this facilitates the sale of illegally drugs through encrypted online platforms. Although there have been some patchworks, regulatory structures governing the online sales of drugs, and the shutting down of darknet marketplaces like the Silk Road, the Alphabet, the trade still persists, fueled by demand and technological innovation. And lastly, we'll discuss about gambling. The regulation of online gambling in the US is complex, with federal and state laws intersecting. The Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act of 2006 aimed to restrict financial transactions related to online gambling, but did not prohibit the activity outright, leaving regulation primarily to the state. On top of that, several states have moved to legalize and regulate online gambling. This shift is due to growing recognition of the potential and revenue benefits. In terms of gambling, fantasy sports is also exploding. While initially gaining popularity and industry support, concerns over insider trading and deceptive practices have prompted regulatory hearings and legislative action in some states, highlighting ongoing challenges in regulating online gaming platforms. Okay, so in summary, the growth of e-commerce presents significant ethical, social, and political challenges that must be addressed to ensure a fair and safe digital marketplace. By understanding and navigating issues like privacy rights, intellectual property, governance, and public welfare, we can foster a more responsible and equitable online environment. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to your questions and further discussion on these vital topics. So feel free to comment and ask questions down below. Thank you.